Hi there, it's David Leigh and Bill Koenig again, and we're experiencing tech problems from the start, so expect me to drop off at any moment. I've fallen off my computer says my camera's not working, or that I've unplugged my camera, which I definitely haven't. So if I disappear, I'll just expect it, and I'll try and get on as soon as I can. So I haven't spoken to Bill live since May 15th or something like that. I think it was. I checked earlier. We managed to avoid June altogether, and tonight, well, I think we're going to talk about the 60th anniversary of Eon Productions and the announcement of Doctor No. We're going to look at some of the latest high-priced and not so high-priced stuff from the 007 store, and I don't know, anything else that people suggest in the comments. But before we do that, Bill, what happened? Was it a Spectre operative, or a Halo jump, or why is your arm in a sling?
My arm is in a sling because I was off last week and I was supposed to play golf. And to get to the first tee box, you go down a
It's a
relatively,
golfing injury.
yeah, yeah, and go down a steep hill. And as I was driving the cart, my hat blew off. And so I get to the bottom of the hill to the tee box. And I look up, and I've got to go get my hat. And it's like, I'll just walk it. So I walk up the hill. Sorry, I put this headset on with one hand. So it's, so I'm feeling it slipping periodically. So if you see me adjust, that's what's going on. Anyway, so I walk up, and it was steep, but I could walk up fine. Then I started down the hill, and that's when my problems arose. It was steeper than it looked, and my feet began moving faster and faster, and finally I lost my footing altogether and smack. And at first I just thought it was going to be um, muscles. And so I told I was with three other guys. I said, all right, I'll just drive the cart. I'm sure I'll feel better after a hole or two. um, well, I didn't feel better after a hole or two. I drove the cart for 9 holes, and it's like, it still hurts. I better like leave and get some medical attention. And that began an arduous multi-hour thing, but which I'll spare the details. But anyway, the diagnosis was a fractured shoulder, and but the good news was no surgery. In fact, the specialist said specifically, gosh darn it, that this was basically a textbook case of not having surgery. That you just have to let it heal. And they said I'd have to wear the sling pretty much for a week to 10 days. I'm coming out of that period. I've done some exercises, but I need to start doing more. So that's why my arm's in a sling. So
Well, it was a golf injury, so kind of Bond related.
yeah, yes, that's true. Bond plays golf, so yeah, absolutely.
Okay, God. How long is it likely to take to recover from it?
12 weeks, something like
12
that.
weeks. Okay.
Um, and I mean, my main concern is trying to regain as much of range of motion as I can. There's a more there's a better than equal chance that I won't 100% regain the range of motion, but just want to be able to get as much as I can. So, I mean,
Yeah. And so
and
is it going to slow down your output on the spy command?
it very well might. I've In the last day or two, I have managed to do some awkward two-handed typing, and we'll see. We'll just have to. I might have to be a lot more selective about what I write about.
Okay. Yeah. Have you tried voice typing at all?
You know, I've got one. I, I have tried it because the Word program on one of my computers has it, and I was trying it yesterday, but it was like it wasn't clear to me how to to end the paragraph. Instead, it would like type end paragraph. Like, no, no, don't do that.
Oh.
um,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah, I suffer from wrist problems and repetitive strain injury in both my wrists, and a few years ago it was pretty bad, and people were recommending me to use voice typing, but I just can't do it because I mean the way I think a lot of people think when you write, you just write and you get to the end, that's it, published. But most of my writing's actually done in the editing stage. I mean, my
Right.
first drafts are just garbage, and the way that I speak is very different to the way that I write. So I just couldn't do it.
And the other good piece of news is on my left hand, the injured arm, that there was no nerve damage. The fingers all move. Although right now my hand's very swollen, and so is all the arm. And I had to take my wedding ring off. My wife was there when the doctor said that. So yeah, he got some kind of, I think it was just soap, and we like took it off. And that was a bit of a strain. That was a week ago today, and I haven't worn my watch since. I mean, I wear a Fitbit on the other arm, so that's now become my full-time watch. So, but yeah, for the first week, I was not moving around very much. I saw a ridiculous amount of the European tournament, and which was interesting. So, yeah, it's sort of like a mini World Cup, I guess. So,
I've watched one match, and I was so bored with it. I haven't bothered again.
well, the way I look at it is, okay, the scores are typically like 1-1 or 1-0, but the way I look at it is, okay, but if someone screws up, then you're sunk. So maybe if you, yeah. Anyway, that's kind of how. But yeah, I understand where you're coming from, particularly when they it's like 20 minutes to go to the end of the game and they start just kicking between each other. You're like trying to stall.
Yeah,
Like, that's a little early, guys. But anyway,
yeah. Well, anyway, I'm sure that lots of people are enjoying it. So if they're having fun, they're having fun. Anyway, we should talk about Bond.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And what are we going to kick off with? Do you think the
Well, I thought we'd start off with the anniversary because we've already I mean, people, when they talk anniversaries, they naturally think about when the movie came out. But if you go a little deeper, I mean, you go a little bit down the rabbit hole, we're already encountering significant 60th anniversary marks. June 29th, this week, was the 60th anniversary of when United Artists put out the press release that it was going to finance and distribute James Bond films, and they had a deal with Broccoli and Saltzman, and if you have a copy, if your home video copy of Dr. No has the documentary Inside Dr. No, you can see the top of that release. And David then, and I mentioned this to David, and then David found the July 6th next week is the 60th anniversary of the incorporation of Eon Productions, and there we have the image of it, and so for the rest of the year, you're going to run into these kinds of marks, and again, it depends on how much patience and interest you have, but I mean, so that means so. And I was also in that Inside Dr. No documentary. There was a copy of a memo. I think it looked like it was from Broccoli to Saltzman, and that said, and it quoted some guy. The name didn't register with me. Said that New York, and I assume that means United Artists in New York, wasn't impressed with Connery. Feels we can do better, and that's dated like August 23rd of '61. So we're now in the period, I don't know when Connery's casting was announced, but we're now essentially in the 60th anniversary of the search for Bond, which will last for however. And then you have like the 60th anniversary of the very first Eon Bond script, which of course is Thunderball rather than Dr. No, because that was Maybaum's, that's what they were going to go first, and that's the first thing Maybaum worked on. And it must have been done before. I have a photocopy of it. It's downstairs. I didn't go searching for it, given this sling, but I don't remember if there's a date on it or not. But Maybaum must have written it before Connery was cast, because the stage directions, the Bond description is straight from the novel, right down to the scar on the cheek, and Blofeld is described as he is in the Thunderball novel, big and massive, so like no Christoph Waltz here. And then
we've got this note from Brian. He says, story I read was how Sean Connery was on set filming a production of Macbeth in Toronto to air on Canadian TV when he learned he'd gotten cast as James Bond. So
that's interesting. Now, if we could track down that date, we could narrow it down considerably.
Yeah, if we were really professional at this, Bill, we would have done that.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest. What prompted me to do so was, and we can segue into this. So, like the 007 store came out with a bunch of new stuff this week, and there was like this new logo, and it was a 00760 logo, and they had the original 007 logo, where the 7 looks like a gun, but the zeros are like rounder. They've over the years they've kind of elongated and sometimes sort of become italic, but so they have that original. There it is, and there's I'm pretty sure that's the original 007 logo there.
It certainly looks. If it's not exactly, it's close. I looked at the calendar, because the cover of the calendar looks great, but then when you flip through it, I think the image is a bit less inspired. I think I would have liked to have seen some I don't know, earlier sketches or something, rather than the just a bunch of posters which have been collected together again. Okay, they've got Japanese ones and I don't know, is that Italian? I can't read. It's all too small for me to see properly. But it's just like somebody spent half an afternoon collecting those together, I think.
I bet it was a full afternoon, but
okay.
Well, to be honest, that's what got me thinking about. That we're already in the 60th anniversary period, because like very early in the year, I had done this post about two most significant anniversaries this year, and one was that United Artists press release, and the other was the 40th anniversary of MGM buying United Artists. It's like, well, one good, one not so good. But that was the thrust of the post. But anyway, once I saw the stuff on the 007 store, then that got me thinking, and I looked up the United Artists press release, and you looked up the incorporation papers, and again, me not knowing the dates, but it's got me thinking about all the other things were essentially in that period. Another thing, of course, would be the first Dr. No drafts, the early Dr. No drafts, because I have a copy that's dated early January of '62, but it's stated as it's the 5th draft, and I think it must be like more or less the shooting script. So somewhere this year, you would have the 60th anniversary of Dr. No as a monkey script, which I've never seen, but of course that's almost kind of a legend.
Yeah, it was because this morning when you said about the 60th anniversary of the announcement, and I thought, I wonder when Eon Productions was actually formed, and so I googled it, and then I came to there's a Wikipedia entry, but it contradicts itself on the page. It says both 1961 and 1962. So I thought, hang on, I can check Company's House and see when it was registered.
Okay.
So that's where I got the certificate from.
And it makes sense they would do that pretty quickly after
Yeah.
reaching the deal because, again, that June 29th date, that's when they put out the release. So, they would have actually cut the deal sometime before that, whether it was days, whether it was weeks.
Yeah,
My guess it might be
I
closer
don't
to
know how many
days.
days it would have taken to actually get the company registered in those days. I mean, these days you can do it on the internet instantly, but back then
Right.
it would have taken a few days, I imagine. So
Well, actually, I'm thinking of the meetings that Broccoli and Saltzman had with the United Artists
yeah,
executives. The time between that and the press release going out. It may not have been that long, but you know, I'm going to guess that doing a press release back then was pretty similar to the way it's done now. I.e., you got to have the lawyers look at it. You have to have it vetted. Anybody who's quoted in the release has to sign off on the quote, because chances are, it's like, here's the secret, kids. People don't really say what they're quoted as saying. Somebody writes that, and then they run it by the person.
what?
Yeah, I
That's
know,
shocking.
shocking. I know,
Yes.
shock. And then they either sign off or they request changes or whatever. But yeah, and so there might have been some period of days between Broccoli and Saltzman shaking hands with the UA executives and that release going out. But anyway, like I said, we're in that 60th anniversary. The period has already started. Again, and how much you want to celebrate things and go down that rabbit hole. But there's a book I was loaned. I wish but I had to give it back. So there would be some dates. There's some documents reproduced in there, and it was published by Film Finances, which provided what they call the completion bond. And so the book is called a bond for bond, and that's the book that reproduces a lot of the documents actually take place once filming starts. So I don't know how much they have in the 61 period. The ones I remember are the ones that caught my eye in that book are stuff that was once filming began and in post-production, because Film Finances took over control of the movie during post-production, which that's sort of a last resort for a completion bond company, and they hadn't done that in a long time. But then they had to do it twice. They had to do it with Dr. No and with Tom Jones, the movie, not the singer, obviously. And and Terrence Young had part of his salary impounded until Film Finances got all of its money back.
I remember you writing about this. So
Yeah.
go and check out the Spy Command if you want more on this.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so anyway, if you're of a mind to celebrate 60th anniversary bonds, you can start right now. You don't have to wait till next October of 2022.
The frightening thing is that it doesn't seem that long ago since they were celebrating the 25th anniversary.
You're right. I remember that, and I
do. Good.
there was that. Well, I assume it was shown in the UK as well, but it was in the US. It was shown on the ABC network. That special hosted by Roger Moore, and I remember being struck by Roger looked like better in that special than he did in A View to a Kill.
Yeah. I think there certainly was a 25th anniversary special show, and probably on ITV, because ITV was always the home of Bond in the UK. That they always used to show the films there. So I guess that was on there as well.
Yeah. And of course, all the hubbub about the 50th anniversary. I mean, God, that was 9 years ago.
Well, and don't forget the 40th. I mean,
yeah.
It's insane. It doesn't. I think, Die Another Day and the 40th anniversary, and where has the last 20 years gone?
I know. It's crazy. But maybe we should segue more into the 007 store. And it's like, well, I think that calendar looked reasonably priced, but that was, but there were a lot more expensive things on that.
Yes, let me see if I can share something else that is on the 007 store, which is yes, it's this. Yes, it's
13,250 pounds. I was so dumbstruck by that figure. I haven't even bothered to do the conversion to dollars.
Yeah. It's what I don't know what the dollar rate is at the moment. It's probably about 17,000, is it? Something like that.
At least.
Yeah. But it looks like like a nice roulette wheel. I don't know how much roulette wheels cost, but they need to be precision built, because they need to make sure that there's no bias in the wheel. So
Right.
I get that, and the finish on it looks nice. It's half scale. But it is a bit pricey.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the backgammon set, which was I think $5,000 or $6,000, I thought that was ridiculous. It's like, well, you haven't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, yeah. But Bill, let's see, featuring the 007 logo in place of the 7 pocket position.
Yes. Oh, there you go.
So, 700 casino grade color wheel checks. I don't know what they are. And Casino Royale. Oh, they spelled Casino Royale incorrectly.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. No E on the Royale. Oh yeah, and a Casino Royale poker chip prop from the Bond archive. So presumably that means one that was used in filming.
Yeah. Which
Although
is,
it doesn't actually say that though, does it?
no, it's implied, but it doesn't say it. And it's a limited set of 250, if I recall.
Yeah, I think that's where has it gone again? Oops.
Maybe the poker chips are taking up too much room in the archive, and it's like, well, how can we get rid of some of these poker chips? I know, we'll get them to buy this a ridiculously expensive roulette wheel.
Yeah, they need to get rid of the poker chips so that they can fit the Coke spraying machine in.
That's right.
Where is it? It does say somewhere. Collector's edition. Yeah, I've got the idea it's 250, but I can't see it at the moment.
Yeah.
So I take it you're not going to get one then.
No, I'm not going to get one. I mean, if you've got if you're blessed to have enough money to get one of these out of your mad money, you go, you do it. I'm not going to make fun of you, but like, I think that I think the calendar was maybe just a tick under 10 pounds maybe. The one thing I noticed, I went to the 007 store through my phone. Then when I got to the page, it says, "Oh, I can tell you're from the United States. Would you like to go to the United States page?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And then it's like, "Oh, page not available." So it's like, well, I guess they're thinking like, we grubby Americans aren't interested in either the calendar or the wheel, because I tried it with both.
Yeah. Okay. We've got Tony says I want the Camel Khan dice from Octopussy. Yeah. Yours for £7,000.
Well, the Kamal Khan dice, wouldn't that be just some powder? Isn't that what what's his name's crushed into powder? It's like, here's you pay $5,000 for it, you get a little tube of dust. Honest to God, this is the very dust that came out of Kabir Bedi's hands. So.
So no takers for that then.
Not for me, but.
No. Okay. Viewers, got any questions for us? Doing anything this weekend bomb related?
I saw somebody was trying to do a watch of Live and Let Die, then realized it was on opposite the England soccer game here this weekend. So I think they're conflicted.
Yeah, I don't know if there's I should have checked to see if there's any football going on at the moment. Maybe there is. Let me just Google this.
Well, something else that came out this week, and it was
Belgium, Italy at the moment. Sorry.
I have it on. I think it's tomorrow. England is, or is it Sunday? I forget. It's this weekend. I know that. So, I was about to say something else that came out this week was, so James King, who, he's been like the master of ceremonies in the past of some of these Bond press conferences when they announce filming. And he was the host initially of this official No Time to Die podcast, which, I wrote, there's been 3, and then someone said, well, technically it's not 3. I mean, there's 3 things on that podcast page. 1 is sort of an introduction, 2 is a full-fledged episode, and 3 is a brief video. Oh, well, the movie's been delayed, so we're going to delay the rest of the podcast.
It was weird because they launched the podcast and then pulled the film within a week. Maybe it was even two days after it or something crazy like that. It was not very well timed.
And what King said, and he said this on Twitter, he said that he had interviewed Hans Zimmer earlier in the day, and hashtag phenomenal, and then somebody asked him, is this for the official No Time to Die podcast? And he replied in the affirmative, that yes, it was, and it will launch soon. So then somebody tweeted at me that they seem to be pretty confident that it was going to relaunch in September, which if it does indeed, it's scheduled to come out on September 30th, I would think they'd want to have it relaunched by September 1. It depends how many episodes. I think originally it was going to be 6. So I don't know. I could see them starting late August, possibly. Depending on how much time you want between the last episode and the movie coming out, which I'm going to ask you about something related in a minute. But anyway, it's I wrote it up. I didn't write it up a lot, partially because it's kind of hard to type one-handed, which I've done most of this week. But it was a sign. Okay, the marketing, because that podcast is clearly a promotional vehicle, and so it's a sign that yes, the marketing machinery is gearing up. I mean, we don't know the bulk of what they're going to do, but yeah, it's okay. If James King is talking to Hans Zimmer for the official podcast, then okay, it sort of stands that that's not the only marketing thing going on right now with No Time to Die, as it kind of comes out of its hibernation low these many months. But
yeah, because we lost the Twitter Bond emojis
right.
a few weeks ago, didn't we? So I've got no idea how much those things cost, because Twitter don't publish their prices, and
no,
it's got to vary depending on I guess basically how much money Twitter thinks that they can extort out of whoever's paying the bill. So I've seen some people saying that it costs $1 million, but for some unspecified time to do that, and maybe it does, but maybe it doesn't.
I'm surprised that emoji lasted as long as it did. I figured when they delayed last fall from November,
before that they pulled it almost immediately. So I was surprised at that as well. But then I was thinking, well, maybe they've got 12 months of credits, and they want to make sure that they've still got credits for the movie launch.
Yeah. But I'm pretty. In fact, if I remember correctly, I think one of those James King tweets, it said hashtag No Time to Die, but it's just plain No Time to Die. There's no Aston Martin, which was the emoji they had before. And they probably don't have James Bond 007 as an emoji right now either.
They don't. No.
Yeah.
No, all the Bond ones have gone. Yeah. So,
What I did want to ask you was, because I know you follow this more closely than anybody else I know, is what's your feeling? I mean, I think right now there's a fair amount of optimism in the Bond fan community that it's going to come off this time. And and I would be above 50%. But I admittedly I vary. I go from 51, 52 to up to maybe 58 depending on the day. But I mean, a couple things. It's sort of like if I were like Lieutenant Columbo, well, little things bother me, and they're really not little things. Is like right now we were talking about the European soccer tournament, and there have been some outbreaks related to that, because in some places they've got full stadiums. I think Wembley was full the other day when they beat Germany, but in others they've capped attendance, at half or a quarter or whatever, and so that's, I mean, and plus you've got all these fans, going back and forth across the continent. And and they make mention on the telecast about Switzerland played earlier today, and they're talking about the problems that the Swiss fans are going to have getting back into their country, because today's game they played was, I think, in St. Petersburg. And then the other thing, of course, is the Olympics, which start later this month, and there have been polls that the Japanese public is not very enthusiastic about having these games.
80% of the Japanese public don't want the games to go ahead.
Yeah. And they've said that the athletes just won't be able to go out on the town, and they won't be able to do they'll have a really tight existence during the games, and I don't know. And with Japan, the vaccination rate had been very low. I mean, I think it's better than this now, but maybe a month or so ago, I read that it was 2%, 3%.
Yeah.
They've had a real problem getting people vaccinated. And so I just wanted to ask you, what's your feeling about the likelihood that No Time to Die really comes out, in about 90 days?
I'm a bit mixed with it, because at the moment that the UK's got 27,000 new cases a day for the last couple of days. In Europe generally, Italy in particular seems to have it under control. That they've been reporting less than 1,000 cases every day for a couple of weeks or something like that. They reintroduced a lockdown. They've got things back under control. The UK went massively on vaccination, but it looks like now, because younger people aren't so affected, I think the government is adopting a policy of letting younger people get the virus and going for herd immunity, which I think could be catastrophic if there's a mutation which evades the vaccines. So it may pay off, but it may not, and I think it's a stupid gamble. So there's that aspect of it, and I was looking at the figures in Spain at the moment, and we're breaking down the age groups, and at the moment it's they're vaccinating I think 30 to 40-year-olds at the moment. I've had 2 shots of Pfizer. My wife had her second shot today, and it's just anybody above the age of 70. The cases there are just flat. The cases in my age group, which in the 50s is flat. The cases in the 60s is rising slightly, and I think I was talking to my wife about this earlier, and she does have an explanation for it, and it's because the 60-year AstraZeneca's been
Pulled.
withdrawn in Spain, and so basically there was a delay while they decided what to do about that. And in fact, people have been given the option of either going for Pfizer or AstraZeneca, and so there's actually been a delay in that age group in getting the second shot. Okay, so most of that age group who want it have had their first shot, but many haven't had their second. So that is explainable. The 40 to 50s, they're growing slightly, but then you look at the age group, which is 10 to 29, and it's a hockey stick. It is growing exponentially.
And I just want to be clear, I'm not being an alarmist here. I'm not predicting it's going to get delayed. The movie is going to get delayed again. But I guess, but I know that it's just this kind of stuff is in the back of my mind. But on this, at the same time, trying to reinstitute a lockdown, I think it would have to be a really compelling case. Because I read up some months ago about the 1918 pandemic, and they instituted lockdown and had mask wearing, and then they let off the gas, and then they tried to do it, and then people didn't go for it. People, they kind of like once is enough, and again, I don't want to make too much of anecdotes because there's this tendency, well, I saw it, so this must be the way it is. But I have seen a few times people I know on Facebook saying, I'm never going to wear a mask again. I'm done with the mask. It's like, this is it. And it's I could see where it could be a hard thing to do. And as it relates to No Time to Die, the last time we did one of these live streams, there was a story in one of the tabloids about how they wanted to do this big premiere at Wembley, and then it just that kind of disappeared in the ether, which made me wonder. I kind of wonder if that was like a trial balloon, and it's like and it's like really easy to get the tabloids to carry your water on a trial balloon if you're the Bond franchise.
Well, they wouldn't get me to Wembley to watch a film at the moment if they paid me.
Yeah,
there's no way.
Well, and it's like, we were having a discussion amongst the James Bond and Friends crew, and it's like, I hadn't even thought about this because I still have this big credit with Delta Airlines.
Yes.
It's like, would I even want to try doing it? And because international travel, even though the virus seems to be more under control now than it was a few months ago, it's like international travel is still kind of hinky about, do you go into it just is, and the conditions change, and I don't think I'm gonna be I don't think I could if I wanted. Well, now with my arm, I really don't think I could, but I was it's, I don't know. We'll see. Well, I mean, I know some people have pulled off international travel, so it depends on the country. It depends on the circumstances.
Yeah. Well, we haven't been anywhere. We haven't been to a city for the last city we went to was and I mean just in normal life was Barcelona, and it was on the what was it? I think it was March the 9th, 2020, and that was kind of under protest, and because we had to, and we've avoided any kind of because I live in the middle of nowhere, literally, and we've got a few neighbours and so on, and there are villages around here of 5,000 or 8,000 people, and even those seem too big to us. So. The thought of travelling to London, going through airports, going through cities to get to airports, I just think there's no way I can do it at the moment.
I mean, we'll see, and it's like, and as I said, that one, I'm going to call it a trial balloon about doing the premiere in Wembley. The fact that there hasn't been much follow up, I wonder if they've kind of like decided, well, that might not be the best idea. I don't know. It's hard to tell because as we discussed then, back in May, oftentimes the tabloids will have a kernel of truth, but then they
Yeah.
exaggerate and they get built up, and because another one of the things was they want Daniel Craig to go to all these cities to really promote the movie and go to all these premieres, and it's like I don't know. We're having premieres, but I don't know if we've had a movie that's had like a globe hopping series of premieres the way that the Bond films typically do. Like Fast and the Furious 9. They had something, but I I don't think they went. I don't think they went globe hopping. Maybe they went to a country or two, but I don't know. But well, we'll see.
I mean, it's because travel's been so restricted for the last year, and it's in some respects it's amazing that Formula One managed to get to as many places as it did, because they waived the travel restrictions for them, because it's big money, and money always talks.
Right.
But there were Lewis Hamilton went down with COVID, so and I have no idea whether he got that at a race or through his team, or whether it was in a private capacity. But it's if you're traveling, you come into contact with a lot of people. Just it's the nature of travel, and that just increases the risk.
Well, here in the U.S., a guy named Chris Paul, who's a star basketball player for the Phoenix Suns, and they're now going to play in the NBA championship. But he missed some games because he had to go through COVID protocols. It's not clear to me whether he actually had it or he was exposed to it, and they had to quarantine him. But he definitely missed some games because of it. So, yeah, things are made clear. Things are considerably better than last winter, but it's not over. And I know, and I understand the temptation. People want to get back to what they remember. And I live in Michigan, which had been one of the more stricter states, and they've pretty much ended their stuff. They were under pressure to, but we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things is that one of the unknowns about COVID really is how long COVID is going to affect people, and what impact that's going to have on the health system, and how many because young people suffer from that as well as older people, and so it's all very well saying, well, it's young, they're less likely to get serious illness or die from COVID, but they may all the same have serious health issues for years. And it's like they've been doing brain scans of people who have suffered from COVID, and it's like 55% of people are showing brain damage.
Ouch.
Yeah. It's, so I think the UK government's being very, very complacent, or in fact probably more than that, reckless.
Well, but also turn this around again toward No Time to Die. The thing is, okay, hypothetical situation. This is something I've thought about. Okay, let's say things continue where you can release movies. You've got, like I say, you have F9 out, and then you've got Black Widow coming out on this month in a week or so. But although it is kind of dual in theaters and on Disney Plus, except it's not part of the regular Disney Plus. You still have to pay extra, so it's
Disney Plus.
Yes, exactly. So So if that pattern continues, where fairly major movies continue to go to theaters, but then with the Bond film, they say, well, we can't do the big thing, the big event that we want to do. We have to delay. I don't think that would go over very well. And just be clear, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I have thought about, would they be satisfied with something less than a spectacular Albert Hall style world premiere, and would they be satisfied with something, still have stuff in other countries, but just somewhat smaller in scale than they're used to having? And I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, just it's. I do think if they delay it again, but things are no worse than they are now, then I think you're going to hear some real yelping from the fans.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. I think it's probably 50-50 at the moment. A few weeks ago, I was saying 40 to 60 against, but it's probably 50-50 at the moment. Okay. And then just looking at the comments, I said, Tony, I'm spending the weekend making the Lego Aston Martin. I bought it when James tweeted it was going. What's that? EOL this summer? What's that? I don't know. Does it mean James Page?
You know what? That's funny. I'm not seeing the comments. Last time I could. Now I'm not.
Let me share that.
Oh, there he is. Oh, yes, that is James Page. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, apparently you have to get your Lego Aston Martin now while supplies last.
Yeah, end of line.
Yes.
Or something.
Yeah,
Okay.
because somebody else has apparently picked up the rights. But maybe the deal hasn't taken hold yet, or But yeah, that's apparently getting handed off.
Okay, and right. Brian, does Eon really stand for everything or nothing, or is that just a myth?
Well, I'll tell you what, because I was watching, because I made mention of that Inside Dr. No documentary, and in that documentary, which was made in like '99 or 2000. Michael G. Wilson specifically says it doesn't. I think that the Patrick McNee narration says, for many years, some fans thought it stood for everything or
Yes.
nothing, and they show the Stephen J. Rubin book, because that's the first time I ever heard of that. And then Michael G. Wilson appears to be denying it,
Yeah.
but
There was a documentary. Was it for the 50th? Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was called Everything or Nothing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a great documentary if you haven't seen it. But in that, I think it's Barbara Broccoli says it stands for everything or nothing. So take your pick. Yes and no.
Yes and no. I mean, if it really never did in the beginning, then they've clearly embraced it, because of course you had the video game called Everything or Nothing, and I assume they had to approve that as the title. I mean, that was back during the Pierce Brosnan days. So whether it's just a myth, I don't know. It's like, it's like the it's an old Western, but when the legend becomes fact, print the legend. And that's kind of what it is, because I mean, I'm stubborn about this. I refuse to capitalize Eon, because okay,
Me too.
Michael G. Wilson said that, so it's okay, I'm holding you to that. So
all their press releases come out with Eon capitalized these days, and so I always edit them. If I do a copy and paste on their press releases, but I changed the Eon. What I ought to do is program my website so it automatically does that. That might actually save me. Well, I don't know. Is it worth doing that? It'll probably take more time to write the program, but
and
it's
and
possible.
and eon is a word. I believe it's some lengthy period of time.
Yeah,
Like
that's right.
yeah, like the glaciers took eons to flatten the mountains, something like that. So yeah, it's like, I mean, everybody does it. They do it now in their press releases. That's fine, but like I just write it, capital E but small o, small n.
Okay. All right. Eon, an indefinite and very long period of time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
don't say you don't learn anything on this live stream.
There you go. There you go.
Okay. Next up, maybe if Bennifer show up together at premiere to support his ex-girlfriend would be. Okay. Well.
That's right, because remember, well, God, it's like trying to remember all this stuff. So at one point, when Ben Affleck and Anna de Armas were an item, there were stories in the tabloids that's like, well, they don't want Ben showing up.
Oh yeah.
And so this question is playing off that, I assume. And it's like, well, what if both Ben, because apparently he's back with, is he back with J Lo? I shows you how much.
I've no idea.
I
I didn't know that he had been in the first place.
yeah, one time he was, and then I thought I read, oh, he's on the rebound after he broke up with Anna de Armas. He got back with J Lo.
I'm just a country bumpkin. How do I know what goes on
Right.
with the A-listers?
Yeah, because Bennifer refers to, of course, Jennifer Gardner, who he actually married and then divorced. It's like, you could get whiplash just trying to follow Ben Affleck's love life. It's like, it totally snuck up on me that he and Anna de Armas were tonight. So it's like, it's now a little I care about the subject. But then it got on my radar with all this talk about, oh, we can't have Ben showing up at the premiere. But then all these delays have taken care of them.
Okay, and let's see. Well, does the Broccoli family have an heir in waiting to take over? Eon.
Well, we have
Eon capitalised there, so
yeah.
You've gone with the official way of writing it, Tony.
Right, yeah, the now official. Well, there is Greg Wilson, who is one of Michael G. Wilson's sons, and he has had the title of associate producer on the last couple. And his involvement may go back before that. And in fact, in Die Another Day, it's funny when Bond is looking at the magazine article about Gustav Graves, the byline is Greg Wilson. A little so. But then there's another. But anyway, Michael G. Wilson has another son named David who's been involved. I don't know if Barbara Broccoli has children.
She does. I think she has a daughter.
Yeah. So does Barbara Broccoli want to bring the daughter into the family business? So there are definitely kids. I mean, they're probably well into it. They're obviously well into adulthood by now, but I don't know. It's they have they don't talk a whole lot about succession and subjects like that.
No, well, they rarely talk about new films. In fact, they get thinking about it. They hardly say anything at all unless they're forced into it. You need to handcuff them to a chair and interview them.
Yeah, and when the Amazon MGM deal was announced here recently, several weeks ago, that they put out a statement, and it was clearly not coordinated with MGM or Amazon. It's like,
no.
Essentially, I forgot the exact words, but essentially, like, we're still in control. So yeah, well, I don't know. Family succession's a weird thing, because the third generation is where it gets tricky, because by the third generation you start having, you have grandkids of the founder, and I mean, there have been some companies that have been able to deal with that, although it sometimes has involved one wing of a family buying out the other wing, just to kind of more centralize the control. But you know, there anyway. To answer Tony's question more directly, there are heirs. You know, whether they're waiting to take over, we'll see.
Yeah, and if they do, how well they do is another question. I guess I guess with Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli, they were actually they were brought up through the ranks. I mean, they pretty much started at the bottom and just worked their way up through different jobs, and really understood what it took to make a Bond film. And I think there's a lot of value in that. I think where successions go wrong is when you get some kid who's basically got no experience, and he's born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and he's just handed the crown jewels to the company, and he doesn't really have any idea about how the company has ever been run, how it got to be what it did, and so in a way it's instilling the culture of the company. So maybe Eon does stand a chance, because they do seem to, to date they seem to run like that. As I said, Barbara and Michael have done that, but Greg certainly.
Yes, because Greg, on Quantum of Solace, he had the title of assistant producer. His title card was, along with I think 3 or 4 others, and then with both Skyfall and Spectre, his title was associate producer, a little more impressive sounding, and his title card I think was with like one other name on both films. So and he may have worked before that, but in terms of on-screen credits, those are the ones I've noticed. And then with Barbara Broccoli, I mean, her first exposure was when she was a teenager, like writing captions for publicity stills for The Spy Who Loved Me. She described this in one of her rare interviews in December of 2017. She did this interview with this Hollywood Reporter podcast, and she didn't talk anything about Bond 25, but I found the historical stuff more interesting. And she talked about, again, she was.
I remember it was a good interview. Yeah.
Yeah, she would have been like 17 or 16 or 17 when she was doing the caption writing, and then she's been in it full time, since Octopussy. She graduated college in '82, and then Octopussy went into production in the summer of '82. So, and then with Michael G. Wilson, I don't know if he started in the legal department, but it took him a while. He didn't have screen credits. I think my understanding is he joined full time in '72, but he didn't have a screen credit in either Live and Let Die or the Man with the Golden Gun, and then he got his first screen credit with The Spy Who Loved Me, but it was like his name was like shared with a few people. And I think his title on that film was Special Assistant to Producer. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, it was a while for him to, work his way up. He just didn't show up, light a cigar, and say, "I'm in charge here." See?
No. Because he was a lawyer for a time, and his expertise was put to good use as well.
That's right. When Broccoli and Saltzman separated, and Cubby Broccoli talked about that in some detail in his memoirs. That Michael G. Wilson was very much part of the legal effort in the negotiations to unwind that partnership.
Right, we're actually on the hour, but just a quick one from Brian. Does Harry Saltzman have any descendants? He does.
Yes. Stephen Saltzman he lives in Monaco, Monte Carlo, Monaco. Kind of like promotes Monaco. He had a daughter, but she passed away here in the last year or so, Hillary Saltzman.
Didn't he have haven't. A second
Well, you know
daughter.
what? Well, there's another daughter, or at least she says she's his daughter, named Mary Saltzman, Merry.
Oh yeah.
Because remember, she announced that she was going to produce a play, and then and like people wrote about it, and then like one of the rare times that Eon spoke up, said no. It's like, we control; those are our rights. And then she was asked about, Mary Saltzman was then asked about it. Says, well, it's parody, so it's covered. Well, anyway, haven't heard anything about that play ever since. That was several years ago now.
Yes. And the I've lost where I am. Yeah, I actually met Stephen Saltzman at the Thunderball 40th anniversary screening in London in 2005. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and recently, and by recently I mean maybe the last 6 to 9 months, there's a news magazine show here in the States called 60 Minutes, and they did a segment about Monaco and its tax exempt status, and Steven Saltzman was like one of the guys they talked to, and like, again, he promotes Monaco, and he's talking about, well, Monaco's so great, and okay.
yeah, yeah. As long as you've got a monthly income of about half a million.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Bill, it's been great speaking to you after 6 weeks or something face to face. We have spoken on James Bond and Friends. I don't know if all the episodes have actually been released since, but and I hope the shoulder continues to get better.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Like,
Yes.
I'm just gonna. Hopefully, I can like get this thing off at least a big chunk of the time here
Yeah. Yeah.
within the next few days. So we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it'll be a while before you play golf again.
Oh
Anyway.
yeah, I know. I know. I right now I'd settle for like being able to lift my left arm as high, close to just being able to lift it up. I'll settle for that.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Well, thanks everyone for watching, and thanks for your questions and comments. And if you haven't watched it all, if you joined halfway through or towards the end, then it's going to be. Probably you can watch it now immediately. It's YouTube's pretty good like that. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for watching, and I'll speak to you soon, Bill. Cheers.
Cheers. Take care, everyone.
Bye.